What is consciousness? Seriously, where does your rich inner world of thoughts and feelings and just awareness, where does it come from? It's genuinely one of the biggest, most profound mysteries in all of science. And today, we're diving into a theory that challenges, well, pretty much everything we thought we knew about it.
Just think about it for a second. You don't just process information about the world, right? You experience it. You feel the warmth of the sun, you feel the sting of a sad memory, the absolute beauty of a piece of music. But is all of that experience just a clever illusion, something cooked up by a biological computer? Or is there something else going on entirely?
And yeah, this right here, this really gets to the heart of the puzzle, doesn't it? On one side, you've got the human brain, which creates this incredible inner world full of subjective feelings and actual understanding. But on the other side, you've got a supercomputer. It can perform trillions of calculations a second, but all of that processing, it happens completely in the dark. There's no one home. It feels nothing.
So, for decades, the mainstream scientific view has had a pretty straightforward answer to this whole puzzle. It's a little unsettling maybe, but it's the idea that consciousness is just what happens when things get complicated enough.
And this famous quote from the AI pioneer Marvin Minsky, man, it just perfectly nails that conventional wisdom. The thinking basically goes like this. If you get enough neurons, billions of them, and you connect them in a complex enough network, and they're all firing in these intricate patterns, consciousness just kind of emerges. It's what the brain does when it computes on that massive of a scale. But, not everyone was buying it. In fact, a true giant of physics looked at this whole brain as a computer model and basically said, nope, that can't be the whole story. And we're not talking about just anyone here. This is Sir Roger Penrose. He's a mathematical physicist of the highest possible caliber. His work with Stephen Hawking literally changed how we understand black holes. The man is a certified genius, and he had this profound objection that didn't come from neuroscience. It came from the pure, abstract world of mathematics. His whole argument really hangs on this thing, Gödel's incompleteness theorem. Now stick with me here. In simple terms, it proves that in any consistent logical system, like a computer program, there will always be statements that are true, but which that system itself can never prove to be true. The system is fundamentally limited by its own set of rules. And this is where Penrose makes his incredible leap. He argued that human mathematicians, you and me, we can see the truth of these unprovable statements. Our minds can somehow step outside the system. And so he concluded, our understanding, our consciousness, must be doing something that no algorithm, no computer can ever do. It has to be non-computational. Okay, so if our brain isn't just a regular old computer, then what in the world is it? This is where Penrose, along with an anesthesiologist named Stuart Hameroff, came up with one of the most audacious, most out-there theories in modern science. They suggested we have to go quantum. The stage for this whole wild theory is set deep, deep inside our own neurons. Within every single one of them are these tiny, intricate protein tubes called microtubules. Think of them as the scaffolding of the cell. Now, for the longest time, everyone thought they were just simple structural supports. But Penrose and Hameroff, they saw them as something way more, potential quantum computers. To get this, you gotta wrap your head around one of the weirdest ideas in all of physics, superposition. It's the absolutely bizarre idea that a tiny particle like an electron isn't in just one place. It exists in a kind of cloud of all possible places at the same time until you look at it. The moment you measure it, that cloud collapses into just one single state. It's weird, I know, but it's real. So that brings us to their big idea, the orchestrated objective reduction theory, or OR for short. Here's the gist of it. They think quantum bits of information, qubits, are flickering in and out of superposition inside those microtubules. Then, these quantum states are orchestrated or linked up across the brain by the neuron synapses. When they hit a certain physical limit, they spontaneously collapse on their own. That's the objective reduction part. And here's the kicker. Penrose and Hameroff argue that each one of these collapse events is a single, distinct moment of conscious experience. Now, as you can probably guess, this radical idea was met with a huge storm of criticism from pretty much the entire scientific community. And the main objection was simple, and honestly, it seemed completely devastated. And this was the killer argument. The thing is, quantum effects like superposition are incredibly fragile. We can only make them happen in labs under super isolated, near absolute zero conditions. The human brain, on the other hand, is warm, it's wet, it's chaotic, it's electrically noisy.
It's just about the worst possible environment you can imagine for these delicate quantum states. Surely, they just break down instantly.
And this number right here, this kind of gets to the core of the problem. A physicist named Max Tegmark actually did the math. He calculated that any quantum state inside one of those microtubules would decohere, that's the technical term for just falling apart, in about 100 quadrillionths of a second. That is just way, way too fast to have any real impact on the much slower processes happening in our neurons.
I mean, even Penrose's own legendary collaborator, Stephen Hawking, was super skeptical. This quote from him is pretty sharp, and it really captures how a lot of critics felt, that Penrose was just taking two giant mysteries, consciousness and quantum physics, and just kind of mashing them together without enough evidence.
And look, beyond the pure physics of it, there was this really big philosophical problem too, which the philosopher David Chalmers pointed out. Even if the whole theory were true, it doesn't actually solve the hard problem of consciousness. It just swaps one mystery, computation, for another, arguably even weirder mystery, quantum collapse. You're not really explaining anything.
So for years, that warm, wet, and noisy argument really seemed like the nail in the coffin for the OR theory. It was seen as this brilliant but ultimately failed speculation. But then, the story took a very surprising turn.
This is where things get really interesting. That most powerful, most damning critique, the idea that the brain is just the wrong kind of place for quantum mechanics, has actually started to come under fire from new experimental evidence.
Okay, so first, back in 2013, researchers in Japan actually detected sustained vibrations inside microtubules, which suggested they weren't just sitting there doing nothing. And then, more recently, other studies have found real evidence of quantum effects happening inside brain structures. It's starting to look like biology might have evolved some very clever ways to protect these delicate processes, maybe even using them to shield our neurons from damage.
So, what's the big takeaway here? The crucial point is this. While the OR theory is still very, very far from being proven, its single biggest objection, it now looks a whole lot weaker. The idea that quantum mechanics has no place in the warm, wet brain? Well, that's no longer a settled fact. The door has been cracked open again. And trust me, this theory goes to some truly mind-bending places. Penrose's collaborator, Stuart Hameroff, he speculates about what happens when someone has, say, a near-death experience. He suggests that the quantum information inside those microtubules isn't actually destroyed. It's released back into the universe. If the person is revived, it comes back. If they die, maybe it continues to exist. It's basically a scientific argument for a soul.
And all of this, it leaves us with a final and honestly kind of chilling question for our time. If Penrose is right, if consciousness is some specific, non-computational quantum process, that means we could build an artificial intelligence that is vastly smarter than any human, but which feels absolutely nothing. A super intelligent machine with no inner life, no awareness, no consciousness at all. And if that's the path we're on, what exactly are we building?